On September 26, 1991, 8 human beings walked into a glass pyramid deep in the barren Arizona desert. They turned the heavy steel wheel on the airlock and sealed themselves inside. They were entering the most elaborate prison ever constructed, a $150 million masterpiece built from steel, glass, and pure hubris. Behind them, the atmosphere of Earth was locked away. They called the Earth Biosphere 1. Ahead of them was Biosphere 2, a perfectly engineered, self-sustaining world, designed to prove that humanity could survive on Mars. They had unlimited energy radiating from the sun. They had an ocean with a living, breathing coral reef. They had a dense rainforest, a sprawling savanna, and a fog-covered desert. They were the selected few, the Elite Biospherians, chosen to model the future of our species. 5 years later, the world they built was dead, and the 8 people inside were barely alive. But they didn't die of starvation. To understand the collapse, you must understand the machine. Biosphere 2 wasn't just a greenhouse. It was a massive mechanical metabolism. The facility was entirely isolated from the Earth, sitting on a 500-ton stainless steel liner. Above it sat 3.1 acres of structure, constructed with over 6,000 glass panels, sealed so tightly that almost no air could escape. Its leak rate was lower than the International Space Station. A massive hidden infrastructure lay beneath the dirt. They called it the technosphere. Endless rows of pumps, heaters, and air handlers, managing the delicate respiration of every biome. To manage the expansion of air from the intense desert heat, they built 2 massive circular structures. They referred to them simply as the lungs. If the temperature rose inside the glass, massive aluminium discs inside the lungs would physically rise, preventing the glass panels from shattering under the pressure. Every single variable was calculated, every predator and prey relationship optimized. This was playing God at a 1-to-1 scale. But the architects forgot one crucial detail. The most unpredictable variable in any paradise is the human mind. The first threat came not from the technology, but from the sky. Within months of the doors locking, an unanticipated El Niño weather event struck, shrouding the Arizona desert in persistent, heavy cloud cover. The critical sunlight needed for photosynthesis plummeted. The plants could not grow. In the agricultural biome, the crops began to fail immediately. The Biospherians were transformed overnight, from futuristic scientists into starving subsistence farmers. Their daily diet was violently reduced, forced to survive on nothing but sweet potatoes, a handful of beans, and the very rare, heavily rationed banana. They were constantly, painfully hungry. To conserve precious bodily energy, they began to move slowly, speaking in lowered, exhausted voices. Within the first year alone, the crew had collectively lost 16% of their body weight. The medical officer documented their physical decay, noting that their physiology was radically adapting to severe, sustained calorie restriction. Their metabolisms crashed, their core body temperatures dropped. But as their bodies physically shrank, their psychological anger grew. The suffocating reality of the closed environment took hold, amplifying every minor irritation into burning hatred. They split down the middle into 2 vicious factions. 4 members believed the mission required emergency external aid. The other 4 believed they must suffer to preserve the experiment. The purist group became known internally as the Hunger Faction. All cooperation instantly evaporated. The utopian paradise had become a theater for a slow-motion civil war. They actively sabotaged each other's work. They stopped looking each other in the eyes. They communicated only through slipped notes under doors. And then, they began to run out of air. It happened gradually, almost invisibly. The oxygen level inside the dome began a steady, unexplained descent. Starting at a healthy 20.9%, the level dropped by roughly 0.5% every single month. The scientists outside were watching the monitors in terror. By the 17th month, the air inside Biosphere 2 contained only 14.2% oxygen. This is the exact atmospheric equivalent of living at an altitude of 13,000 feet. The Biosphereans were suffocating in slow motion. They woke up gasping for air in the middle of the night. Their speech slurred and slowed down. Their cognitive abilities severely degraded. Simple math equations became impossible to solve. They developed a collective, heavy lethargy, staring blankly at the glass walls that trapped them. And then, the high-altitude psychosis set in. Severe, unchecked paranoia. The 2 factions believed the other was plotting against them. As the physical and mental crisis escalated, the control team outside had to confront a terrifying reality. The grand experiment was a catastrophic failure. On day 475, the pristine seal was finally broken. Massive external tanks were quietly rolled up to the facility, injecting thousands of tons of pure oxygen directly into the dome. For the first time in months, the Biospherians could breathe. But the most disturbing question remained unanswered. Where did the oxygen go? The carefully designed ecosystems were supposed to balance the cycle. The plants produce oxygen, the soil microbes and humans consume it and produce carbon dioxide. If the oxygen was falling so rapidly, the carbon dioxide levels should have been soaring to toxic, lethal levels. But they weren't. The carbon dioxide was vanishing too. The brilliant scientists outside were utterly baffled. It was only after months of frantic, desperate analysis that the invisible monster was finally identified. It wasn't the soil. It wasn't the invasive insects. It wasn't the weather. It was the concrete. The sheer volume of exposed concrete used to construct the technosphere was slowly, silently, and chemically curing. As concrete cures, it absorbs massive amounts of carbon dioxide from the air. The system had been consuming its own atmospheric reserve. The perfect glass world had literally suffocated itself. In 1991, they spent $150 million to create a perfect world. They calculated the biology. They calculated the engineering. They calculated the sunlight. The only thing they couldn't calculate was how long 8 people would remain human.